Joseph Rosendo. I get to see your posts. You post on Facebook, and I've had a chance to interview you, and I feel a special bond because I've watched all of your wonderful TV shows, and I always get thrilled when you get another Telly Award, and you did get some more Telly Awards, didn't you?
Yes, we did. We just got a Telly Award. We got a gold Telly Award.
Ooh.
First time they've had gold Tellys, the Tellys. They've had silver, and we won those. And they've had bronze, and, of course, we won those. We have 50 now, so along the line we picked up all the different colors. And the gold Telly is a new category for them. And, we won it for our Taroko Gorge show in Taiwan, which is no wonder we won. It's a fabulous destination for travelers, and it's a beautiful natural phenomenon. It's a wonderful gorge where the rocks are basically marble, and it's extremely beautiful. High mountains, and also indigenous people that live throughout the gorge as well. So you get to have a little bit of both the culture and the nature of Taiwan. And we were excited to be there, and we're happy we were able to produce a show that was award-winning.
Well, I happened to watch that show. I watch all of your shows on PBS, and I have to say, I always learn new things. You go to places I never would have thought that existed in Taiwan. We don't hear about it. So I'm always grateful. Yeah. And I always love the way you are interacting with the local people and get them to tell their stories. And I'm sure that's why you won 50 Tellys and Emmys. You've got, how many Emmys have you won?
Well, the show has won 6. I've won 4 for directing and
Wow.
And hosting the show itself. The show has won 6, though, because we won for cinematography, and we also won for sound mixing. And we've been nominated like 17 times. So
Wow.
they like to say that if you may not win, but you're always nominated. And once you're nominated, you're always nominated, whether you win or not, and it's an equal thrill, but actually it isn't. It's better to win than to not.
I agree.
But it's nice to be nominated. So we've done pretty well with the award in the award world. But the real pleasure of doing the show and the real reward for doing the show, Joseph Rosendo's Travelscope on PBS, and also on Amazon, by the way. And we're internationally distributed as well. So we've just been getting a lot of nice response from our viewers in Spain. So
wow.
That's always a thrill. But the real joy and the reward for doing Travelscope is the doing of it, the creativity of creating the show, and of course, as you mentioned, meeting all the wonderful people.
Well, the last I spoke to you from your lovely resort home, Topanga. Topanga is an island unto itself. If people haven't been to Topanga, they have to realize that Topanga is a unique community. I guess here on Maui, we would kind of maybe related to Makua, but it's its own little unique area, and I loved living there. I lived there for years, a long time ago. But last we talked, you were kind of holed up there at home, and everything was on hold. And you were thinking of writing a book since you had started that idea. I have to put you on the spot. Have you done any writing?
I'm finished. It's actually off and being put together, and should come out. I was predicting that it would come out in August. It may come out in July. And thank you for mentioning that. And I'm real pleased with how it turned out. It of course, grew. Like all creative things do, you start off wanting to do one thing and it ends up being a lot more. And I think I'd be interested to see how people receive it. It's a combination of being a travel book because it covers many destinations, and in my experiences in those destinations, it has some hard, nuts and bolts tips about funny things like packing and bargaining and stuff like that. But mostly it's an inspirational book, follows my travels, but also my journey through life, through using with travel as an underlying theme. And it should, I hope, inspire and encourage people to live their dreams and to do what they wish they want, they know they want to do, and to discover what they want to do. And so it's that kind of a book. A lot of short stories, so they're easy to read. And, we hope people will read some, put it down, pick it up, put it down, that kind of thing. And they certainly, if they're viewers of Travelscope, and if they know me from the show and from the website, the travelscope.net, where we have our magazine and our podcast and blogs, then they will get to know me better, because that's really what the book ends up being, is a kind of an insight into my journey and my through travel, and my journey through the world, and my journey through life. And so, if they're a fan, then they'll be able to learn more about me. If they've never heard of me before, they'll be introduced to me. So it's that kind of a book.
Well, whenever you write
we added, there's illustrations in it. There's family pictures and other pictures.
Wow.
So these are things I never even thought I was going to add. I thought it was just going to be a collection of stories, and it's become much, much more.
Well, I know that when you start to write, I haven't written bios, but I've written 6 books. But I know when you start to write, it's interesting how things come up, and it becomes also an inner journey as well as one that expresses itself outward in the book. And did you find yourself remembering things or kind of reflecting on things as you were writing this book, Joseph?
Oh, absolutely. Particularly since a lot of the stories, in some point or another, rely on my personal history and my family history. So in going back and rediscovering, going back and doing research on those stories to making sure I got everything right, I learned more about my family. And in fact, one of the funny things was I did most of the work on the photos, working in Photoshop and another number of other programs to bring it up to published quality. And it was interesting working on those photos. It's like I got to know the family members that I was working, whose pictures I was working on, very intimately, and learned a lot about them, the way they looked, their expressions, their kind of attitudes and spirit through their pictures, and discovered little interesting things, like in my grandmother's basically her wedding picture right after she got married, when she was 16, 17 years old. She has a little necklace on that I never noticed before, has a picture of my grandfather in it.
Wow.
And I noticed that when I was blowing up the pictures and working on them to try to restore them somewhat. And things like that. I learned things like that. I learned, I reminded myself about my brother and what a snappy dresser he was, even when he was like 6 years old. And that brought back other memories. And then, of course, the travel experiences themselves, I was able to relive them. And one story is actually devoted to that concept of gathering memories through our travels and being able to relive them and having them fire up our enthusiasm for life and our inspiration for moving on through life as we remember these experiences that we have, and whether we use photography or photos that we take on our trips to fire that idea, or if we journal. A lot of people journal on their trips, which I wish I would have. It would have made my writing a lot easier.
Yeah.
But people, so that the things that they can always go back to, and in researching the book, I went back to some old letters. I got it was a very much an inner journey as well. I got a lot out of it besides finally being able to complete a task that I set myself to do like 20 years ago, finally able to finish this collection of stories. So I hope people will enjoy it. And they can get more information on it by going to our website, travelscope.net, and they can reach us that way, or just email me directly at jrosendo@travelscope.net, and I will give them information on the book. But it should be coming out, and we're certainly promoting it in our next and our e-blast that we do for our next issue of our publication, which, as a matter of fact, these stories were in an earlier manifestation of the magazine that we have now online. It was the print version that we had for a long time, and these stories came out of the Musings columns that I wrote at that time, and that's going to be on our e-blast we're about to send out, because our next issue, our summer issue of the online magazine, is coming out, and we'll be reaching out to people and giving them information on how to get a copy.
I definitely want to read it. I remember you talking about, was it your father? It was your grandfather, maybe, that lived in Cuba and had the cigar factory.
Well, my grandfather was born in Cuba.
Uh-huh.
His family had a tobacco plantation of sorts in Pinar del Rio, which is the western province of Cuba, and the tobacco-growing area of Cuba, famous for its tobacco. And they were growers, they were farmers. And then when he learned about blending tobacco to make cigars, obviously those farmers all smoke cigars and make cigars. And so when he came to the United States after the Cuban War of Independence, which is thought of in the United States as the Spanish-American War, it's actually the Cuban War of Independence, in the 1890s, when he came at the end of that war to the United States, he had a job waiting for him in Tampa, in the Ybor city of Tampa, which still is a very interesting and colorful area to visit. It was the Cuban, Italian ghetto area, if you want, of Tampa, or the communities of Tampa. And he went there, and he worked for the Habit Tampa cigar factory, which still exists. And then had the opportunity to go to Miami and open his own small cigar factory, which he very cleverly called Hava Miami. He needed a PR firm, I think, to help him out a little bit. But anyway, so he sold his cigars, and yes, so that's my background with as far as cigars go and Cuba goes. My grandmother was already here. She was born in Key West, and had moved to Tampa with her family, and they met in Tampa, and then everybody moved to Miami, and all of us kids, if you will, now in our 60s and 70s and 80s, were born in Miami.
You know, it's interesting because I was talking to you about what it's like, because you're a Ma and Pa organization, basically. You know, you have pretty much been the captain at the helm, deciding where you're going to go, what you're going to do with your wonderful producer wife, Julie. But, you know, in all these beautiful episodes and award-winning episodes, you have a very small, tight, wonderful crew who knows you and knows how to work and puts it together. Now, obviously, there's been such upheaval. There aren't a lot of other Travelscope people who are big name or as successful as you. I mean, obviously, there's Rick Steves, and there's Peter Greenberg, and there's Rudy Maxa, you know, are some of the big ones. But all of their lives have been put on hold right now, and they've all had to try to work in a different way. Radio is a little different and more flexible, but you are working with TV. So when you're looking now, and obviously this big news that you kind of was expecting was going to be about the EU closing down. Yeah. You were going to go to France you had planned to go to Ireland. Now what? Obviously you can't do that now. So
well, we had to shoot in Ireland. We're on the way there, and then the announcement was made that no Europeans would be allowed into the United States. And of course, the people in Ireland said, "Well, we don't want you to be here until your president decides to allow Europeans to come back," which he has yet to do. Mm-hmm. So the fact that the EU decided that Americans wouldn't be on their entry list is not a surprise to me. It's kind of tit for tat in a way, but also the main reason behind them is that they're protecting their people. And we're the country with the most amount of infections and deaths from the virus, and certainly they are taking the safeguards that they need to, and they have already had it in place in their country. So they were smart enough to clamp things down pretty quickly and to separate people and to take the pandemic seriously, as opposed to the leadership here in the United States. And so we're suffering from that, not being able to go to Europe, of course, as one, and particularly as a travel show, that really does cramp our style. In fact, all of our productions shut down. We haven't been able to do anything in that regard at all. I mean, we have had a trip scheduled for South Padre Island, Texas, but Texas has just had a spike in infections, and so we had moved from March to September. It's probably going to be moved to next year. So we will have a season 12. When it will finish and be delivered, we don't know yet, but we're hoping that there'll be a vaccine, or people will be confident enough, or things will be in control enough that we will be able to travel and do what we love to do in at least the spring, so that we will be able to deliver season 12 next year. And fortunately, all the people that we had plans with understand the situation and are working with us to make that happen. So we're hoping we'll have another show in Ireland. We're hoping we'll be in Texas for a show on South Padre Island. I will be going back to Taiwan to do a Best of Taiwan show, and then we're hoping to do a show in Phuket, Thailand. So those are what's sitting on our shelf, but nothing has moved because of what's going on. And, we feel what's the biggest loss here is not the loss of us doing a show, obviously. It's the terrible loss of life, not just in the United States, which is pretty horrendous, over 100,000 people, but in the rest of the world and in the world in total. So that's the real tragedy. Our not being able to do a travel show is certainly low on that totem pole.
It's interesting because I don't know about you, but I've been getting antsy, and they call it rock fever maybe here, but I always like to travel. I don't travel as much as you do, but I love to travel. And, I'm going, well, where can we go? What can I do? And it's like some of the ones I wanted to go. I have friends planning to do a cruise in October, and they're not even sure since they're Americans, if they'll be able to do the cruise and get in to some of the countries in Europe, right? Exactly. So it's like, well, we don't know.
A lot of the ships don't want to land in American ports.
Yes,
so
that's true too.
A difficulty.
Yeah. So I know your wife Julie is going to have a birthday in July. Yes. Happy birthday, Julie! She's an amazing force that works with you beautifully.
Yes.
And you mentioned that possibly you might go to Mendocino. Is that still in the books?
Right. No. Well, fortunately, it's still in the works because our governor just today rolled back, and he likes to talk about it as a dimmer, that the opening was on a dimmer, which means it can move up and it can move down. And it's moving down now because California has increased the amount of people testing positive. We're doing many, many more tests, of course, than we're doing. And, of course, you'll find more people if you do tests. And we have over 100,000 tests a day are being done here in California now. I mean, I just went to a test today just so I'd have something that says I was negative.
Yeah.
But and Julie and I both went down and got tested. And I recommend everybody who can do that and let us know where we stand. And let them know where they stand. Mm-hmm. So the governor just came out and mentioned some pullbacks, closing some bars, closing some indoor seating, wine tastings and wineries, their indoor facilities, closing that so that people won't be congregated, closing parks, zoos, theaters, bars, and so that's going to go on for 3 more weeks here in California, but not in all the counties, fortunately. Mendocino County was not on the list.
Okay.
So we still get to go to Mendocino on Monday and spend a week up there. and hopefully some of the facilities and some of the attractions will be open to us. That of course, because it's always left to each town, each city, each county, to make, like the mayor of Los Angeles added additional restrictions on top of the governor's. So it really depends on the locale what exactly you can do and can't do. And I haven't heard anything out of Mendocino, so I think we're still on target to go in on Monday on an exploration trip up the coast of California to Monterey, San Luis Obispo, and ultimately in Mendocino.
So you're driving.
We're driving, yes.
Good way to go.
My wife is not ready to fly yet.
You know what? I think it's one of the most beautiful drives. I think I told you we had stations in Sonoma County and also one KOZT, which is in Fort Bragg and gets into Mendocino. And that station's still on the air. But I used to go up there almost, once a month and sometimes more when I was living in Sonoma County. And I just love Mendocino. To me, there's just something about that gorgeous coastline. And it truly feels like small oceanside places that are just small little towns with beautiful walkways and lovely little stores. Mendocino has beautiful art stores, wonderful restaurants. I don't know. I hope the restaurants are open. And if you go down to the bottom along the coast there's a lovely walkway right along that beautiful coastline. And,
we'll do that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, driving in from Sonoma, you'd go through the hills there, and there's that amazing house where some birds, Alfred Hitchcock filmed birds there.
Oh, yeah, right.
But also you can go through Bodego Bay, is famous for its fabulous clam chowder. It's right there, a lovely little seaport. And then you go on up, and Albion is gorgeous little town, and to me it's just gorgeous and beautiful and kind of timeless. And I know you love Maine, but it kind of reminds me of a West Coast version of Maine, And
it's a very small, laid-back community, and fortunately, haven't had any or many cases of COVID up in that area. So they are going to be. They're allowing us to come up, and hopefully we'll be able to spend the after July 4th weekend there, which was our we planned on purpose, and partake of some of the attractions up there. I mean, I know there'll be limitations like they are everywhere, but fortunately they don't have these additional limitations that the governor has just put in place because they didn't need to. I mean, the 19 counties that he has added restrictions onto are where you would think, Los Angeles, Riverside County, Ventura County, where all the people are.
Right.
Where 70% of the population of California lives. So you would expect that there would be something happening there, and they did. And we were looking for it to happen. But the urge to travel, the urge to get out, is what's driving people.
Yeah.
They just need to be. You can do that and be cautious at the same time. And there are ways to get out and experience, the wonderful weather we have here in California now, and the beautiful natural environment of California. I mean, right here in Topanga, we have, as you know some of these places. The End of the Seventh Ray is an outdoor dining restaurant, a beautiful dining restaurant. They're open and serving people, and they can because they have outdoor seating. And some of our other restaurants, I mean, if you're going to have a restaurant in Topanga, you better have some outdoor seating.
Yeah.
So fortunately, our restaurants are allowed to stay open, but nobody can go inside. And until today, they were still able to serve to their clients indoors, but they can't anymore. At least for the next 3 weeks.
Did you ever go over to the hill and go to the Sagebrush Cantina down there in Agoura, just outside of Agoura?
Sure, over in Calabasas.
Yeah. I love that Sagebrush.
Absolutely. I go there every Saturday morning because there is a tremendous market there that runs from about 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock, till around 1, and I go there to get my European fix because I can pretend somewhat, if I don't notice everybody speaking English, that I'm in France or someplace in Europe at one of their wonderful outdoor markets.
Yeah.
And it's a great opportunity to have a social connection without, once again, social distancing and wearing masks and all that other good stuff, but to be able to have a human contact, because I think that's one of the things that are really suffering from this pandemic, the deadly pandemic that's killing so many people and making so many people sick. But the thing, even the survivors, what we're suffering from is the withdrawal from each other, withdrawal from human contact, and hugging, shaking hands. I mean, we just did a FaceTime session with our grandchildren who live, 10 miles from us, and we would visit on a regular basis, and who came over to Topanga and stayed with us. Well, they can't do that right now. And that's really, suffering from that is really like going through withdrawals from any kind of addiction. And the addiction we're talking about in this case is the addiction of human contact and love and all the other emotions that go along with that. And it's real, that I think is proving difficult for the survivors, and that's why people are rushing out too early to socialize again and to congregate again, because they're starved for that.
I agree.
Unfortunately, it's not helping the situation, because it just keeps us sick and keeps us on the wrong end of the scale, of the graft. We're at the top of it instead of going down, and that's the problem.
So when you do, I know it's in your nature to do some pictures and things when you take a trip. Are you going to try to get any video when you take on this trip, or is there just going to be a vacation from that? Or are you going to just do photos or no video? Or had you thought about maybe trying to shoot some video yourself?
We haven't thought about that because it's Julie's birthday, and one of the things Julie hates to do on her birthday is work. And so for me to come up with an idea to shoot while we're there, or to even do a bunch of interviews, would be put me on a bad footing with my wife.
You don't want that. I get it.
She's not about to go along with that idea. Although, having said that, we will be reporting on what we're finding as we go up the coast, and using our Facebook posts and our Twitter and Instagram posts to take pictures and to give people an update on how the counties north of Los Angeles County and Ventura County and Santa Barbara County are doing, and which is the area, it's the part of the state where we live, and how they're opening and what we discover. I mean, how are people handling feeding people and entertaining people, and how the wineries open up there. It's a wonderful area for wine.
It is.
And the tasting rooms over. How do you have to taste? How do you handle the tasting room situation?
Not with a mask. I can't see
a
tasting.
County that's open.
Yeah, with tasting wine, you can't put a mask on when you're tasting your wine.
No, you can't. Not the whole time under the mask, I guess. But we were so we will be doing that kind of exposure and reporting in that way. But shooting a show, probably not. I mean, if I want to risk divorce, yeah, I could probably, but I'm not interested in that.
Well,
and,
I don't want to let.
It's so funny that after we didn't go to Ireland, we came home. We had a house sitter who was here and expecting to be here for 2 weeks. And we walked, we came back, and she was shocked, of course, to see us. She had made plans to be here. So we had one very uncomfortable night where she's sleeping in the loft in Julie's office, and we're sleeping in the house. And then we just said, what we're going to do, we're going to get out of town. We're going to give you time to sort out where you can go, where you're going to go. And so we took off for 3 days and went up to the San Ynez wine country, which is right here in Santa Barbara County.
Yeah.
And at that point was still open. Things had not started. The shutdown had not happened. This was right at the beginning of the virus hitting the United States. And things had gotten bad, and they were going to get worse very quickly, and things were going to lock down. But it didn't happen yet. So we went up there, and we spent 3 nice days the San Ynez Valley, which is in Santa Barbara County, and so here we are again, escaping to wine country. I don't know, I think we're saying something there.
Absolutely. Well, it's always a treat to talk to you because you have this warm, wonderful energy, and it is conveyed in your voice. And, you might think about that. There might be a way to do a radio show. I think we might be able to work something out if you want to do a radio show when you're bored of doing all these shows that you couldn't do on the road right now with video. But radio's a lot simpler than trying to do.
I did it for 23 and a half years.
I know.
I know. So, I know. I had... traveling and doing a radio show is a lot easier than traveling and doing a television show. I had much more fun with a radio show.
I get that.
It's much easier.
Yeah.
And it's cheaper.
Yep. A lot cheaper, and you're very good at it. And you're very good at it. So please wish Julie a very wonderful, happy birthday. She does a fantastic job, and I think you'll love your little venture up the coast, and this is what America's going to be doing, little village towns and little places they can escape to that they haven't been to. And it's great that Julie hasn't been there, and you can show her this lovely trip to Mendocino. I think it'll be very memorable. So
I think it will. Thank you for the tips you've given us. And, just keep, people can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We'll be posting some of our adventures up there in Northern California.
Thank you so much, and stay well and have a happy trip.
Thank you. Same to you. Stay well.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Okay, aloha.